Tian Hao's words startled Lu Jinian. His words got stuck in his mouth, and he became dazed. He raised his head to stare at her for 2 seconds before lowering it down abruptly, covering her lips. His actions were abrupt and without warning, so when Tian Hao finally came back to her senses, her breath had been taken away. His kiss was violent and aggressive, as though he was trying to vent his frustration. Occasionally, when he didn't control his strength, her lips would hurt. He pressed her against his body tightly, not allowing her any opportunity to move. He entered her roughly, without bothering to be gentle, even though he knew that she would hurt. It was as though he wanted her to feel the same pain that she had given him. Without caring about her, he continued on with increasing speed and roughness. In the end, Tian Hao could no longer take the pain. Struggling, she pleaded lightly, "It hurts." The moment he heard it, Lu Jinian paused momentarily before carrying on with increased intensity. Tears started welling up in Tian Hao's eyes as the pain intensified. Lowering his head, he could vaguely see tears streaking down her face as the dim light from the moon fleeted in. His lips pressed together before he lowered his head once more to cover her lips. It had been a long while since Tian Hao had received such torture. Time seemed to have stopped, and it went on and on. Unknowingly, after a long while, everything ended. Tian Hao curled into a ball from the pain. Lu Jinian was startled by her action, reaching out to grab her chin upwards to look into her eyes. His eyes were red, with a hint of pain and insanity, his lips trembling as he breathlessly declared, "Look clearly at who I am." After a slight pause, he asked, "Are you clear?" His voice was fierce, interrogating her. Tian Hao shivered at the coldness of his voice. Lu Jinian seemed to have seen her tremble, for his lips curled up into a smirk. He loosened the grip on her chin and moved back slightly. Looking at her, he spoke again in a low voice. "Forget it, I must have thought too highly of myself. How can you see me?" His tone was cold and ruthless, but soaked in sorrow as well. Tian Hao remained silent as she listened on in confusion. Silence sunk on the car, and the river streaming nearby could be heard. After a while, Lu Jinian's usual cold expression came back. Wordlessly, he took out a tissue to clean up before arranging his clothes. Sitting back on his side, he turned to look at Tian Hao, but before he could take a look, he took his phone out and pushed open the car door.